Sports Talk Chicago. Here with Jon Zaghloul, and we are back and ready for today's special guest. He's the White Sox Beat Writer for MLB.com and a BBWA member. Please welcome Scott Merkin to the program. Scott, happy birthday. How are you?
Thanks, John. I appreciate it. How you doing?
Good. I'm doing great. Thanks for being here. Any special plans for your day today?
No, in the past, when I had today off. So in the past, when I've had a couple of days off here in Arizona, I've gone to visit friends in Las Vegas, but you get a little older and, you take the days off and just sleep and catch up on bills and try to get ahead for work for the rest of the week. It's sad, but that's the case. Maybe a couple dinners this weekend or something like that,
Well, I appreciate you spending such a special day with me. I mean, that has to mean something there, right? On your birthday coming on this program.
That was the whole setup was just, it was the day was built around appearing on your show.
How's it feel to be back in Arizona covering spring training?
I mean, I've been out here for a little bit now. I came out here on like the beginning of March, thinking that, there was going to be a settlement on that first day. March 1st went a little bit longer. So, I got a good look at the minor league side, and there's some interesting players down there too. And it's great. It's great to be back. The Sox had because there's 15 teams out here, 15 teams in Florida too. There's going to be one team that has a day off, obviously, when they play, and that was the Sox today. And when we're taping this, and it was good to see Cactus League action back yesterday. For a while, I think we thought that wasn't going to happen, but they were back in action, and it's great to see baseball and more to come. They have a lot of games in a short time. I think they only have one scheduled day off before they travel on the 6th to Detroit for the opener on the 8th.
What's your evaluation of their free agent approach and what they've done this offseason?
That's a lot of debate. That's a lot of debate because I think people are not thrilled. Fans in general, I don't want to say are not thrilled, but they feel like, there's a lot of bullpen money tied up down there. Obviously, they took it, not tied up, but used down there. They, exercised the option on Kimbrough for $16 million. They brought Graveman in, I believe it's $324, and Kelly's $214, I want to say off the top of my head. They also brought Vince Velasquez in there. So, I think that's how you win championships. You got to hit. The Sox did not hit for much power or extra base power in that series against Houston in the, 4-game loss. And, I get that, but I think that's going to be taken care of by guys just staying healthy. And you can never guarantee that, obviously, but that's just going to be helped by Luis Robert not missing 3 months. Eloy Jimenez not starting his season on July 26th. Yasmani Grandal was hurt really from the beginning of the year and then suffered another injury on top of that. Later in this, hurt his right knee in spring training, had to have surgery on his left knee in season. Michael Kopech was out with, an injury. I mean, they went through a lot and still won 93 games. Now, a lot of teams go through a lot. The World Series champion lost maybe the best player in the National League, right? Or one of the best players and still won the title. So not an excuse, but I'm saying that, just like the Braves are going to be better with Ronald Acuna, the Sox will be better with healthy guys. But, I like the addition of Josh Harrison. I think people really want a right fielder. And I was talking to a friend of mine about this today in the sense that I'm not sure if this is a shot at Andrew Vaughn or Gavin Sheets or Adam Engel, but more so they want a consistent right fielder. They feel like that it's been kind of a revolving door for a while out there that hasn't worked. They tried Nomar Mazara a few years ago. The name I keep hearing from fans, although I haven't heard a ton of connection to the Sox, I haven't heard a ton about him, period, right now, is Michael Conforto. And obviously a very good player. But the thing you got to figure out is Rick Hahn made this point the other day without mentioning any names, obviously. He said, you always feel like there's one more move to make. But the question is, sort of paraphrasing, is it one move too many? Are you making a move just to make a move? Or are you making a move to, make the team decidedly better? And I don't want to put all this pressure on whoever if they do add someone, whether it's Conforto or someone else, but I don't think that person is responsible for them winning the title. But I think you want to spend money as in, this is the piece that makes you a World Series championship true contender, as opposed to a clear-cut favorite in the AL Central who may win the championship. Is that Conforto? Well, we'll find out. We'll find out if the Sox are even in the mix or if he goes somewhere else. If he does go somewhere else and they don't add anyone else, I think they have some good options. I think, Vaughn and Sheets, to say they can't do something, they can't do right field, they can't play right field, they can't be right field on a championship team, it's kind of silly to me because we don't know that. I mean, if you're judging Gavin Sheets on the handful of games he played last year, that makes no sense to me. So, I think you got to give, as Rick has also said, you got to give these young guys a chance. You're not going to spend at every position, but maybe there'll be a move that makes sense to them before spring training is over.
Do you expect a move to be done, or do you think, at least based on where things are going, they're going to stick with the guys they have now in right field?
Right now, I would say they'll stick with the guys, but you never know. I still remember a few years ago, I think it was 16, right? Spring training started, and Dexter Fowler was all but locked up to Baltimore, right, on a 3-year deal. And 2 days later, he was the surprise announcement at the Cubs camp, and the Cubs won the World Series that year. So what happens today on March, what happens on just randomly on March 18th may be different on March 24th. You never know. I mean, of course, the worst case scenario is someone gets hurt, but the best case scenario is you find a deal that, makes you better and doesn't hamper your overall payroll, which is around 180 million right now for the White Sox. Plus, they always like to keep some room to make moves in seasons. So again, you figure out, does adding a guy now make more sense, or does it make better sense to save and see what you can get, later in the season if that's what you need? Now, of course, the cost now, barring a trade, would be money. The cost in season is going to be prospect capital. So, you go from with a system that, whether you like the young players or not, is currently ranked, 28th or 29th in a lot of polls.
You mentioned the payroll. This is one of the highest payrolls in recent memory for the White Sox. How surprised are you that they're spending all this money?
It's the highest in franchise history. I mean, that's why I disagree with people who say, "Oh, they're not in this to win this; they're in it to, win just at their own level." Well, of course, no business is like, we're going to be in this to win this and go way over what our spending limit is and hope we do it. I think if you had a guarantee, you'd do that, but there's no guarantee it's going to happen, right? So yeah, they're going to spend wisely at this point. I think I'm not surprised. That was the whole point of the rebuild, was to spend to finish things off. And to their credit, now it didn't work, but they did put a lot of effort into Zach Wheeler. They offered him more money than anyone else, and he picked Philly. I think that had something to do with that, family decisions out there. They put a lot of effort into Manny Machado. He picked San Diego. They met with Bryce Harper, and I know impressed Bryce Harper with their presentation. He picked Philadelphia. So you can't win every one. And I think Sox fans, talking to a number of them, get a little frustrated on that front. But, you go for what you can get. And I think, pitching depth is going to be a key this year. Although you talk to the pitchers and, they don't paint as dire a picture as you would think on a late starting spring training and a shortened spring training by a couple of weeks. A lot of them, and I think this isn't just the Sox, but a lot have been doing work on their own and are ready to go. So, you ask Lance Lynn, and I think he wants to go, 95 pitches, his opening start, probably against Detroit. But, they're going to handle these guys carefully, obviously. The worst thing you do is push too much and they get hurt. You lose. Instead of losing one start, you lose 8 or 9 starts. So I think having the pitching depth. Now, you don't want to, as Giolito joked the other day, you don't want to cut these guys saying, hey, give us 4 or 5 innings and you're good to go. But you do have that depth behind him now where you can really, from the 5th inning on, you have quality relievers to go to every time.
What's the rotation going to look like this year specifically?
Well, I mean, they didn't put it order yet, but I had to guess it would be Giolito, Lynn, Cease, probably Keuchel, Kopech. And those are the 5, not necessarily sure of the exact order. Kopech is going to be watched carefully with his innings limit, having pitched in the bullpen last year, going back to being a starter again. He seems very excited about that. He told us yesterday that he dealt with COVID at the end of February, so that slowed him down a little bit, but he feels better now. He said he's, aside from a few sniffles, he's in good shape. He's throwing a live BP soon. He's going to get off the mound in a game, at some point before they break camp in Arizona on that. I think their last game is April 5th and they leave on April 6th. So, that's where a guy like Velasquez comes into play, where you can, use him for greater innings too, and even spot start him if you need him. And there's going to be some double headers in there, so he's going to get some work in there too. So I think it's going to be very interesting. It seems on paper a very good rotation, and you see how it plays out. Giolito would be in line to make his 3rd straight opening day start if that's who they chose.
Scott Merkin here on Sports Talk Chicago. Scott, how do you expect the Sox to build off last year losing in the playoffs like they did?
Well, I mean, I think they said they saw some warts, as Tony La Russa said in that loss. Their defense wasn't perfect. As I said, they didn't hit for much power. Now, that may have been just the way Houston pitched them too. That you can't put all the blame on the Sox and not give credit to a team that, was it 6 games? It seems like it's so long ago now, that lost to the Braves in the World Series. That was a World Series team they lost to, and they were, defeated soundly. There was no, if they have a break here or a break there, they win that game and they win in 5. No, they got beat. There's no question about it. But I think, again, it's kind of like what you saw on the other side of town with the growth process. The Cubs, 2015, they got to the LCS and got beat, got swept by the Mets. 2016, they won the World Series. So I think this was another step. It's interesting. One of the best guys on the team to talk to, this is not slighting anyone else, is Tim Anderson. And Tim has kind of made it, I want to say, matter of fact, and not as in he doesn't care. Exactly the opposite. This guy's this intense competitor, outgoing dude, has fun. But I think he's like, hey, guys, nothing's changed, guys and girls, guys and gals, I should say. We want to win a World Series. I want to get better as a player every day. I want to be an MVP candidate. I want to be the best I can be. So I think he feels like no matter how many different ways you ask me this is what we're all about. We want to win a World Series. So I think what he's trying to say is it's no different than last spring. We haven't changed our focus. We just need to be better. So I think, better defense will help. And I think that's the biggest call for Sox fans to go out and get a guy like Conforto, who's a regular right fielder, whereas Andrew Vaughn basically took over in left field 3 games before the end of spring training last year. And Gavin Sheets kind of learned the position in the offseason, last offseason, and has kind of worked towards that in the future. So, but, they also have DH open. So I suppose if they really wanted to, they could add an outfielder who may not be of Conforto's level, say that 10 times fast, and mix him in at DH with the other choices too. You have Abreu, you have Grandal, Sheets, Vaughn, all these guys can work. And they're Jimenez. So you can move guys around. You have Leury Garcia, you have Josh Harrison, who can play a number of different positions. So there's options. It's just a question of what you feel like the spending level is, and is the person you're going to spend on worth it to take you to that next level.
How easy does that make things for Tony La Russa, knowing you got options and you can move guys in different positions, especially DH, like you mentioned. In Harrison's case, too, you could play him in a number of different positions.
Yeah, you see versatility makes a difference on these championship teams. You have guys who can play all over the place, and you make switches. You can move guys. Josh Harrison, like you said, may start one game in second and may play third and right field before the game's over. So it gives Tony a lot of options. The same with the bullpen. Liam Hendricks is your closer. Assuming Craig Kimbrough, stays there, it's Craig Kimbrough and Graveman is the setup guys. Joe Kelly's right there. But if a couple of them need a day off, you can move everyone back and feel comfortable. Same with Crochet. Same with Aaron Bummer. Aaron Bummer is a great pitcher. He's one of the more underrated lefties in the game, I think. So you can, structure where you can move them back. If Hendricks pitches 3 days in a row or something like that, someone else can close. So, again, options and versatility is a key to helping a team win, especially in a season where you're starting a little late because of the lockout.
Do you expect Kimbrough to somehow recover from what happened last year?
I expect him to be fine. I think that the bigger question, and I've been asked this by a number of people, is will he be here on opening day or will they try to trade him? And I think the answer is yes to both, right? I think he could be here. It's a $16 million deal for this year. Whether or not he's a great closer, the guy's I've said this 10 times now, I've written it about 5 times. He's the active leader in saves in Major League Baseball. He has 372. Jensen has 350. So he would help any team that needs a closer, no question about it. But, what money would have to come along with that, if any, just being hypothetical. And what would you get back in return? Rick Hahn is not about to take a guy who's a valuable commodity in the bullpen, who had a rough finish after being the best closer in the National League for half the year, had a rough finish in the Sox, which he admitted to. He didn't have to admit to. He's a stand-up guy. But, he did talk about, would it have been great if I gave him no runs last year? I didn't do that. That didn't happen. But you're not just going to give him away for whatever someone wants. So if there's no trade that works out, and again, I think it's not that Kimbrough can't pitch the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. This is the guy who's just pitched the 9th his entire career, pretty much, as the 372 saves would indicate. So if you can't find a deal with him, then, as Tony La Russa said in quotes, he's glad to be stuck with him, that you can use him late in the game. So I think he'll bounce back. I still, I'm unsure whether he'll be there opening day. But again, I think it's going to have to be the right trade. And if it doesn't come along, then Craig Kimbrough is going to be a valuable part of that Sox bullpen.
Based on what you saw last year, do you think part of his struggles had to do with not being the closer for one of the first times in his career?
Yeah, it's hard to analyze a guy who's done it for so. I think this is his 13th year, and it's hard to get inside his mind, and he really hasn't said one word. I think knowing that role and knowing what he's going to be in, knowing that he's primarily going to be a setup guy, that primarily he's going to be a guy that may even if it's bases loaded, 2 outs in the 5th, and the starter gets pulled, and you need it's a key game, and you need to get out of that inning. He may pitch the 1 out there and go into the 6th. So I think he knows now that there's no, it's interesting because I remember last year, and we haven't talked about this much, but last year when he came in, there was talk about Tony had talked to Liam Hendriks and him about his schedule. And we were thinking like, is there going to be like certain days one closes, certain days yeah, which made sense. Cause like I said, look at Kimbrough's numbers for the Cubs last year. They were inhuman. They were video game good. But Liam Hendriks is the closer. He's absolutely the closer of this team. And I think probably the adjustment on the fly, not that he hasn't done this a million times before, pitched in the late innings, but now that he knows exactly where he is, that probably will help a little bit. But I think he's just a good pitcher and just has to, sometimes good pitchers get hit. So you just got to figure it out and get back in there.
What's your expectation for the White Sox this year?
I think they'll win the division. For some reason, I do think, and I know it's probably a little early from what the projection, I think Detroit's going to be pretty good. If you look at Detroit last year, aside from a miserable start to the season, that was a pretty good team. They played pretty well under AJ Hinch. And they've added, Javi Baez, they've added Eduardo Rodriguez. I'm not sure if they're going to make more additions. They have some good young players that are on their way. Torkelson, one guy jumps to mind. So I think the division overall is going to be a little more competitive. Shane Bieber's still taking the ball every fifth day for Cleveland. So that's a guy to anchor rotation. Kansas City's young guys are getting better. Witt, maybe it's Bobby Witt, right? No, Bobby Witt was his dad.
Bobby Witt Jr.
Yeah, Bobby Witt Jr. Losing my mind here. He may be up this year. So I think it's going to be more competitive. Sox are still anywhere from like a 7 to 10 game favorite. And then you don't know because there's so many guys, not as many as there were a week ago, but still so many guys out there on the market that you don't know who gets what. I mean, beware of Toronto. I've joked that I don't have a passport right now, so I better get one really soon because that may be a playoff opponent for the White Sox. That's going to be that might have been the best team in the American League going into the playoffs, and they just didn't make it to the playoffs. So that's a team to really keep an eye on. Now, they lost Robbie Ray, who was a Cy Young winner, who was the top of that rotation. But, that's a team to look at. So I think there's a number of teams you can look at in America. There's no one team in the American League right now that you say, oh, yeah, you go through that team, to win. I think there's a number of teams. But I think the Sox, at the very least, are the clear favorite to win the AL Central and make a playoff appearance for a third straight year.
Let me ask you this. Are they closer today to a World Series than they were at this time last year?
Yeah, I think so. Just because, again, people would argue they need the right fielder. They need to finish that last piece. They need another left-handed bat. That could be the right fielder, which, again, all adds up to A plus B equals Conforto. But I think what they have is really good. So I think they are. I think their bullpen is a little stronger. I think, I know the guys they have greater experience, and not just greater experience, but greater experience at success and failure. And the failure is a big part of making it in this game, so they understand dealing with injuries. Eloy came back and crushed the ball in August. I think he had 7 homers and 27 RBIs and then just didn't hit in September. So that's really his first really extended stretch of not great baseball for him, not great results. He played hard, but just didn't get the results. So I think that makes a difference. I think knowing how to get out of slumps, knowing how to win, knowing how to lose and bounce back. And I think last year was an experience, but as Yasmani Grandal said, the only thing he takes away from that is they lost. So they just got to be better against other teams and, in that given series when they come. But I don't think they've stood pat. I think just everything together makes them a better candidate for, going further in the playoffs this year.
Scott Merkin still here on Sports Talk Chicago. Scott, a few more questions before we finish up. First up, how exciting was Michigan's win yesterday?
It's funny. I was transcribing and and I hope when we air this, they're still alive. That's the biggest thing. But I was doing transcribing for a story I did with Tim Anderson and writing a little bit, and I had the game on for the first half, and the first 13 minutes were miserable. They cut the lead down, and I left to go to the backfields to watch the workout. They were down 38-33 at the time. So the key thing apparently is for me not to watch the game, and that will make them more successful. Because I heard this second half was tremendous. They played great in the second half. Key for them is like a guy like Caleb Houston, who's a freshman. When he hits threes consistently, when they hit some outside shots, it opens up for Hunter Dickinson, who's a tough guy for any team, even a team with height, to stop. So, it'd be great to see it. Tennessee's a really good team. Tennessee, I forgot who they even played in the first round, but they took them apart, whoever it was. So that's going to be a challenge. But I remember a few years ago, they were, I think, in the same situation. They were a 7 seed and beat a number 2 seed Louisville to get to the Sweet 16. So we'll see what happens. Juwan Howard, as a player and a coach, has some good success in the tournament. So hopefully he can extend that at least another 2 or 3 wins, if not 5. 5 would be the ideal goal. Excuse me.
Scott, before we finish up today, last question. Why'd you stop the young couple from kissing in the store? Saw that on Facebook.
I didn't stop them. I was just, if I remember the story right, I was just trying to, they were blocking kind of the pineapple. I think I wanted to get to. It was pineapple or strawberry. So I just asked them to move. They could have kissed over by the carrot section. That was fine by me. I just didn't want to hit them with the cart. Hey, I'm all for young love, old love, middle-aged love, whatever love you want to find is great. But just, when I shop, I want to get in and get out. And they were great. They moved over, and I don't remember if they kept kissing or not, but they seem to be. The excuse of we're in love. Sorry, we can't help. Sorry, we didn't see it. Works for me.
Scott, thank you so much for joining me. Best wishes, of course, in Arizona and for this White Sox season coming up. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, John. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.